is unavailable today. Is unavailable today due to an FDA audit at her facility. So in her place, she has nominated her colleague, Mr. Kannan, who will be presenting the talk on her behalf. So Mr. Kannan is a faculty with the Clinical Trials Division at Sri Ramachandra Institute for Higher Education and Research. Along with Dr. Meena Iyer, the entire group at Clinical Trials Division manages multiple clinical trials in the area of nutritional products, healthcare devices, even biologics, and also help in the process for documentation of regarding clinical trials and ethical approvals related to clinical trials. So, Mr. Kannan, without further ado, I would request you to kindly share your screen and please give the talk to appraise our viewers about the ethical process requirements.
Thank you very much, sir. So, good evening, everyone. So, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able. Can you please switch to full screen slideshow?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much, sir. So, today we will discuss about the medical device regulations. So, especially ethical approval related to the medical device. So, first we will see the outline. What are the contents we are going to discuss? First is about the definition of medical device and approvals required for conducting the clinical trials in medical devices, and what are the regulations related to the medical devices. We will see one by one. So, according to the stethoscope, our regulatory agency, medical devices are defined as is an instrument, apparatus, implant, or machine, tool, or in vitro agent that is to diagnose, prevent, treat, cure the disease, or uh, by mechanical action and not through the chemical or metabolic action within the body. So this is the definition defined by SEDESCO. So we are saying the various examples of medical devices that is range from low risk to high risk. Uh, for example, test strips, diabetes stent, pacemakers. So we are seeing various types of medical devices here. So our main objective is to ensure the safety, efficacy, and quality of products. So if you want to do some clinical trials, means the risk always overweigh the benefits always overweigh the risks. So this is our main motivation. So devices is totally different from drugs. So there are different kinds of regulations for the medical devices. So we will see. So there are separate medical devices rules are formulated by our SEDESCO, our regulatory agencies in 2017. So it is effective from 2018 under the Drugs and Cosmetic Act Schedule Y. So the main purpose is to regulate the clinical investigation, manufacture of the medical devices, import, sale, and distribution of the medical devices in the country. So this is a main purpose of medical device regulations. So it is harmonized with other international regulatory practices also. So the main scope of the regulations applicable for the medical devices, especially substance used for in vitro diagnosis and surgical dressings. So, which is mentioned in the subclass of section 3 of Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Second one is substance including mechanical contraceptives, disinfectant, and insecticide. So, which was mentioned in the Class 2, Section 3 of the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. Third one, devices notified time to time under the subclass of 4. So, these are the medical devices are covered by the medical device regulations. So coming to the silent features of medical device regulation. So one is a risk-based classification. Second one is provision of notified bodies. Third one, quality management system. That is ISO 13485. That is only applicable related to the medical devices. So we have to follow all the quality management system which was mentioned in the ISO 13485, and the provisions related to the safety and performance for the manufacturer, and separate provision for the clinical investigation, and provision to establish the device testing laboratory. So these are the some silent features of the medical device regulations. So some of the schedules related to the medical devices. So first schedule deals with the classification of medical device and in vitro diagnostic products. Second schedule detailed about the fee structure. Third one is the registration functions of the notified bodies. Fourth one described about the documents required for the manufacture and import license. So the fifth schedule deals about the quality management system. Sixth one related to the post approval. Seventh one, requirements to conduct the clinical investigation. So eighth schedule deals with the some of the exceptions for the medical devices. So all are described in the medical device regulations. So some of the functions of the medical device division. One is import, registration, and licensing of the medical devices. Second one related to the device approval. Third one, manufacturing license. Fourth one, grant of test license. So NOC for import. The next one is export. The last one to conduct the clinical trials. So these are the various functions related to the medical device division of SEDESCO. So the medical devices are notified as drugs. So some of the medical devices are equivalent to the drugs category. So there are currently we have 14 medical devices that are considered as equivalent to the drugs. So for that we have to follow all the GMP requirements that is specified in the Schedule M. Second one, rule number 109 that deals with the labeling requirements. Rule number 125A, so that deals about the standards of the medical devices. So we have to follow all the regulations as per the guidelines. So once you develop the idea and prototype, we have to do first we have to complete the bench testing. That is performance, assess the performance and safety. Second one is we have to complete the technical testing. So we have to assess the materials and electronic elements of the device for the accuracy and the reliability. So third one is we have to do the redesigning based upon the computer simulations. So there are a lot of methods available for the redesigning of drugs. Likewise, we have to follow the same computer virtual model to redesign the any medical device in order to maximize the activity. So once you develop the prototype, then we can go for the animal research. So in the animal research, our main focus is seeing the biocompatibility, toxicology, and safety. So our main concern deals with the biocompatibility, safety, and toxicology. So once you complete the animal studies, we can go for the efficacy. So in the efficacy, we will do only in the human beings. We can't assess the efficacy in animals because of the biological differences. So there are some medical device rules are implemented, amended in 2020. So it indicates, so the registration of the all the medical devices is will be the mandatory. For example, if you take Class A and Class B medical devices, so we have to register. It has to be notified from September 2022. If you take Class C and Class D medical devices, so it has to be notified from September 2023. This is a mandatory requirement as per the SEDESCO. So let us discuss about the classification of the medical devices. So basically, all the medical devices are classified based upon the various factors. One is it depends upon the how long the device are intended to be in the continuous use. Second one is depending upon the invasive. Third one is whether the device is implantable or active. So the fourth one is whether the device or contains any substance. So based upon the various factors, we can classify the medical devices. So we can classify. First one is class 1, that is low risk. Uh, Second one is class 2A, class 2B, that is a medium risk. Third one is class 3, that is high risk. So we have to follow all the conformity assessment and the CE mark depend upon the class of the medical devices. So first one is class 1 medical devices. For example, catheters. So there are various types of catheters are available. So these class 1 devices normally generally not required for the notification previously, but it will be the mandatory one after September 2022. Class 2 medical devices, for example, take wheelchairs, blood pressure cuffs, pregnancy test kit, syringes, blood transfusion kits, contact lenses, surgical gloves. These are the some examples for the class 2 medical devices. It has a medium risk category. So class 3 medical devices are always have a high risk to the patient. Some of the example: pacemakers, cochlear implant, cranial stent, defibrillator, and ventilator. So these devices are considered as a high risk category. So another classification is based upon the non-invasive. So here the same like invasive. Here the classification is class 1, class 2A, class 2B based upon the uh, risk category. They are classified into 3 types. So this is the another classification, risk-based classification. So here, so like FDA classification, we have the class A, that is low risk medical devices. Low to moderate is considered as a class B medical devices. Moderate to high is considered as a class C medical devices. Uh, High risk, that is come under the category of class D. So we will come to know the various classification of risk-based classification of medical devices. It's available in the SEDESCO website, public domain. So if you have any doubt in the classification of the medical device, we will check in the general portal SEDESCO website. So normally, class 3 medical devices requires the clinical investigation. So because it's considered as a high risk, it come under the category of high risk. So if you are designing any medical devices belongs to class 3 means definitely we need the clinical investigations. and separate clinical trials are required to get the market approval for the class 3 medical devices. So before going for the requirement, we should know the differences between the drugs and devices. So there are a lot of differences between the device and drug category. So normally it's regulated by licensing system, that is a DCGI. Here regulated by notified bodies. So here the labeling requirements is clearly specified. Here device, we have to follow the ISO regulations. Here the bulk formulation takes place. For as devices, we have to um, preparing as a individual accessories, and finally we will assemble as a product. So in the drug, we have a lot of experience, more than 65 years of experience in the drug manufacture, whereas this is a device is a recently developed field. So only the 7 years of experience we can see. So in the drug, it's a basically the action is based on chemistry and pharmacology. So whereas in the device, we can assess the engineering. So in the drug, we are going to see about the safety and efficacy. In the device, we can see the performance and accuracy. So the clinical trials is divided into 4 phases in the drug trials, whereas in the device trials, there are 2 types. One is feasibility and pivotal studies. So we have to follow the GMP guidelines for all the drugs, whereas in the device we have to follow the ISO quality management system regulations. So in the preclinical, we are observing the systemic toxicity. So whereas in the device, we are seeing the biocompatibility. So drugs are normally have a long product life cycle, whereas in the device we have only the short product life cycle. So in the drug trials, we are seeing the drug-drug interaction, whereas in the device we are going to assess about the device malfunction. So these are the some difference between the drugs and device category. So coming to the clinical trials. So what are the different types of trials available between the pharmaceutical product and medical devices? So if you take any drug products, so the first we will start from the phase 0 and up to phase 4. We are conducting at various levels. Phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and phase 4. So whereas in the medical devices, so there are only 2 level of studies. One is called pilot study, that is the early feasibility study. Second one is traditional feasibility study, that is conducted in 20 to 30 patients. And pivotal study is normally recommended for the in order to assess the safety, efficacy, and risk. So, if you want to commercialize any medical devices, then you have to complete pivotal study. So, the last one is post-marketing studies. So, normally, in order to assess the long-term side effects using the post-marketing. So, the first one is pilot pre-early feasibility study. Second one is traditional feasibility study. Third one is pivotal study. Fourth one is post-marketing studies. So this is defined for medical devices. Coming to the concerns related to the medical devices clinical trials. So the main thing is review of clinical trial application, obtaining informed consent from the trial subject. So examination of all SAEs, compensation related to trial related injury, monitoring of clinical trials, functioning of the ethics committee. So all the parameters need to be considered before conducting any clinical trials in medical devices. This is the overall flow chart of the medical devices development. It starts from the developing idea and ends with the post-market studies. So we have to follow all the necessary steps, whatever specified in the medical device regulations. So if you want to market your product, then you have to follow the all the regulations specified in the medical device regulations. So we need to get the ethical approval before conducting any clinical trial. It's a mandatory requirement for all the trials. So that during the initial development, some of the studies that is called proof of concept studies. In order to prove the initial safety and efficacy, so we are conducted in the small number of patients. That's called proof of concept studies. So after establishing the safety and efficacy, so we can do in the larger population. So all the studies requires the ethics approval. So if you do any research in the clinical setting also, it requires the ethics approval. So some of the preliminary requirements, one is sponsorship, confirmation of funding, so peer review, favorable ethical opinion letter, so confirmation of the insurance, confirmation of the research contract, so appropriate any other agreements. So these are the preliminary requirement for the conducting clinical trials. So the documents required for ethical approval. So first one is covering letter to the member secretary. So completed pro forma of the ethical approval, consent forms in English as well as in the local languages, executive summary of the protocol, investigator brochure. So investigator brochure is nothing but detailed description about the entire our investigation product, that is our medical device. So we need to include all the information related to the medical device, how instruction for use, how to handle, what are the expected risks, what are the animal study report. So everything should be summarized as a investigator brochure, safety data, and investigator undertaking, study team, CVs, MRC, and GCP certificate. So everything is required for getting the ethical approval. So there is a format is there for the ethics application. So we have to fulfill all the criteria whatever mentioned here. So first thing, title of the research proposal, name of the principal investigator with the qualification and designation, name of the co-investigator, name of the institute, forwarding letter from the head of the department, protocol of the research. So along with the protocol, you should also enclose the case report form, questionnaire, follow-up cards, participant recruitment procedure, brochure. So whatever applicable for the particular research, you have to enclose all the things. Informed consent, investigator brochure, source of funding, preclinical data, usefulness of the project, agreement to report all the serious adverse event. It's mandatory to report any SAE within a 24 hours of time. It's a GCP regulations. So another one is insurance. So the trial insurance need to be taken in order to compensate any trial related injury. We have to specify the storage and maintenance of all the data. And if you need any biological material need to be exchanged, means we have to make the uh, transfer agreement between the partners. Statement of conflict of interest. So agreement to comply the relevant national and international guidelines, CVs, and any other relevant information related to the study, signature of the investigator with date. So these are the documents are required for the ethical approval. So we have to prepare all the documents and apply through online portal. So, clinical trial insurance is mandatory for all the clinical trials. So, in order to compensate any clinical trial related injury, so it's mandatory to take the insurance. So, first we have to complete the application form, and all the documents should be reviewed by the appropriate ethics committee, and they will give the favorable opinion after reviewing all the documents. So we also include the uh, device related information like generic name, model number, general description of the product, investigation plan. Everything need to be reviewed by the ethics committee. We also need to include the criteria for the patient selection, number of patients, that is sample size, and design drawings, risk analysis results. So whatever observed in the animal studies, we have to enclose all the risk analysis results, design calculation result, summary of experience with the similar device, details of the new or previously untested features, photograph of the device. So these are the additional details are required for the review of the ethics committee. So the principal investigator is responsible for making the EC submission. So if you want to conduct multi-center, then we have to approach site basic. For example, individual sites have separate ethics committee. So we have to parallelly approach all the ethics committee, and we can apply through the appropriate ways. So all the documents should be submitted in English, and we have ethics committee review fees. So normally for the clinical trials, 25,000 they are charging for review all the documents. So these are the various medical devices companies available throughout the India. So that's all about the overview about the medical device regulations. Uh, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Kannan, for this overarching view and description about the overall process of medical device development and where ethical approvals come into picture. We would like to take questions from the people on this call.
No.
Either we can type on the message board, or you can raise your hand. Okay, while the questions may come in, Mr. Kannan, I would like to ask a couple of questions from my side.
Yes.
Which are the most critical set of documents due to which ethical approval for clinical trials may be either rejected or delayed for any type of medical device? Can you shed some light on that aspect, please?
So normally the high risk category request, it's difficult to get the approval from the regulatory side, sir. So normally class C and class D category. So it needs the, actually it requires lot of data, safety data for getting the approval as well as for the marketing.
So, is there a specific type of safety data from animal trials which need to be followed? or at least the data may be presented in very specific pattern for ease or at the submission of the documents for ethical approval?
Yes, sir. We have a format for submitting all the documents. So according to the format, we have to arrange all the safety reports, and we will submit.
Okay, we have a question from one of the audience members. What are the regulatory requirements of non-significant risk devices or low risk devices? I think the audience member wants to ask. What are the
So,
regulatory requirements of low risk devices?
so low risk devices are generally not required any um, central government approval, whereas we need ethical approval for any devices, because we have to do research investigation in human beings. So
Hmm.
we must need the ethical approval for all the category. So only for the market approval we don't need the um, licensing authority approval for the low risk category, whereas for high risk category we must need approval from central licensing authority, as well as if you want to conduct clinical trial, definitely we need approval for all the categories.
Okay. We have a raised hand from one Mr. Amol. Can you please unmute and ask your question?
Yes, sir. Sir, what is the requirement for like digital stethoscope and ECG?
ECG. So, like I already told you, we have to follow the standard format. We have to prepare all the documents required for easy submission, and after the submission, they will review the safety data. So, once if they are satisfied, they will give the approval for the conducting clinical trials.
Sir, is this come under category one or two or three?
Um, See, it's already specified all the. If you want to more detail about the classification of medical device, you can please go through the website, SEDESCO website. So they are clearly mentioned about the classification of the individual medical devices. So you will get the better idea once you go through the PDF. I already mentioned in the slideshow. Once again. So these are the link that is available for the Tedesco website. You can go through it, then definitely you will get the idea about the classification of medical device.
So
Okay, thank you, sir.
this link is for the notified medical devices. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But I think Mr. Amol also wanted to understand whether ECG, I think ECG is a notified device, but the stethoscope is not a notified device.
Yes,
Then
sir.
how would you go ahead with the requirement understanding for the clinical trials or for ethics
Actually,
approvals?
so it will be mandatory from September 2022 for all the devices, sir. So it's always better we will follow the regulations, what are mentioned in the medical device regulations.
Okay. We have a question from Ms. Gauri. How
Yes.
can non-invasive devices like oximeter
Okay.
go under clinical trials while under development? So,
Oximeter.
yeah, I think, Ms. Gauri, one thing is that you need to have uh, a an already developed product at a clinical trial phase with standardized processes. But how to actually test the device oximeter, I would leave it to Mr. Kannan to explain, please.
Oh, you mean to say requirements for oximeter?
Yes. So the question is, how can non-invasive devices like oximeter undergo clinical trial while during development phase? So
Yes,
there's
sir.
the
If
device is
for
non-invasive.
preliminary phase, I'm asking what sort of trials can we go under for non-invasive devices like that?
I'm sorry, Ms. Gauri, can you please repeat?
So like for non-invasive devices like oximeter, thermometer, which can like detect temperature on contact or give oxygen pulses on contact, for those kind of devices, low risk devices, while we are developing them, how can we test them? Like medically test them to know if they are on the right path or being correctly developed or not.
See, before marketing, we must need the clinical investigations in order to prove the safety and efficacy of the every medical devices. So it's a mandatory before going for the marketing. So according to the medical device regulations, it should undergo various types of trials. Then only you will get the approval.
Okay, sir. Will the trials be specified within the documentation, like which trial we need to go through?
Yes, yes. So we have
Okay,
to
sir.
follow the standard protocol, whatever specified for the general medical device regulations.
So, do you have any link or any website to as to where this documentation is stored so that we can use it for a reference?
So you can go through the SEDESCO website. So you will get the complete idea about the what are the regulations related to the medical device, regulations related to conducting the medical trials. Everything is available in the SEDESCO website. So SEDESCO website you can go through and all the you will get all the information.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next question is how do we go about applying for a test license for Class A and Class B devices? What are their specific requirements?
So there are separate forms are used to get the test license. So we can use there are various forms are available to test the license of the medical devices. You can use the appropriate forms and get the approval from the licensing authority. Then we will go for the test of the particular product.
Okay. So you earlier mentioned this September 2022 deadline for registration. Does it
Yes, sir.
also apply to Class A and Class B devices?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, how do we go to SLA for these? For Class A, Class B devices, I'm assuming, because the question is from the same user. How do we go to SLA for Class A and Class B devices?
Sorry, I'm not getting your point, sir.
Mr. Vinay, can you please elaborate what is SLA?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, SL is the
State
state
licensing
licensing
authority.
authority. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So
State
I mean, for Class A and Class B, I think it is the state licensing authority that gives the license. Whereas
Yes,
for Class C and Class D, it's so the central licensing authority,
yes,
right?
sir. Yes,
Right,
sir.
Mr. Karan? Okay. So actually, what we have faced in the two medical devices, which we have, I have mentored two few startups,
Hmm.
is that, about the test license, there is no documentation available on the CDSCO site actually, and it is only for a license. So if we have to test the device for, let's say, first 500 patients across, let's say, 3 or 4 hospitals in a city, so how should we go about it?
See, but first you should know about what is the your main motivation. In order to market means you have to complete all the clinical trials. This is the requirement.
Yes, that is the requirement.
Then you have to complete all the clinical trial process. Then we can apply using the appropriate forms. We can get the approval from state licensing authority.
Okay, okay. So you mean to say that, for we should apply for clinical trials basically, right? And
Yes, sir.
that will be assumed to be a test license.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, right. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Somebody has requested that. Yeah, Mr. Sagar, please ask the question.
Very good evening, sir. This is Sagar from Lifecraft Biomedical Estimation Private Limited. I am incubated in IIT Patna Incubation Center,
Yes, sir.
and my product is IV bag monitoring system, which is used for IV therapy, intravenous
Okay.
therapy.
Okay.
Okay. So my question is of in the context of ethics approval only. So
Okay.
we developed a hardware and applied for the process of hardware certification from BIS. But we are looking for medical approval also, Indian medical regulatory. So right now I'm seeing the slide. It will mention here we should go for CDSCO, CDSCO. So
Okay.
Yes.
so I want to know, means there are many products in market like oximeter also, digital thermometer also. Are they all products satisfied from Indian medical regulatory? Is it compulsory to get a medical regulatory to for selling in market
Yes, sir.
all the developed product?
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir.
Okay. So next thing is in my product, how I should go for the medical approval in India.
See, the thing is, you have to prove, you have to do some comparative study,
Okay.
pivotal study. So the pivotal study is recommended in order to prove your product efficacy than the standard control.
Okay.
So the pivotal studies are recommended in order to prove your product efficacy.
So what is the procedure of doing that?
So first you have to complete the feasibility studies first. So after completing the feasibility study, so we can apply for the pivotal study in the larger population. So once you prove the safety and efficacy of your product, then it will be easy to get the approval for the marketing.
Okay. So there any website or link, as well link from where I can get all the details, how to apply and what is the procedure?
So the Sedesco is a website. So you
Okay.
can please go through the website. You will get all the details related to the regulations, everything.
I would
Yes,
like to I would like to clarify here something. CDSCO is essentially an umbrella organization for all approvals related to medical devices and drugs.
Yes.
And that is why the speaker, Mr. Kannan, is regularly referring to CDSCO website. As a medical device developer, it becomes very critical for us to be very familiar with the CDSCO and the regular updates they put out. The medical
okay.
device regulations in 2017, their approval in 2018, and implementation updates in 2020, where certain notified devices were introduced, and now the updates on voluntary and a compulsory registration of all medical devices, which are coming into effect over a period of 48 months. So all of these are developments that are happening at the end of CDSCO, and they are applicable across the country. So all the listeners, I would request that please make yourselves familiar with the CDSCO website. There is a lot of information there, which sometimes you may find confusing, but it requires a lot of patience to go through these documents. Maybe a lot of interaction with maybe regulatory experts or clinicians, and maybe even the CDSCO officials in different cities and zones to understand the requirements and classifications of medical devices that we are working upon. So, if Mr. Kannan cannot, I'm pretty sure Mr. Kannan cannot answer all of your questions regarding all of your devices, because he has experience with a particular set of devices that he has tried
Okay.
with clinical trials.
Yes.
For each of our individual devices, we need to go through these regulations ourselves to understand the requirements. He is giving us a very broad picture and some very specific details about what processes are to be followed. And we should take this as a guideline of what we should do at our end. If you come to him or to any clinical trials division, they will help you out with your product testing. But as Mr. Kannan also mentioned, you need to come as a principal investigator. You need to come up with a trial protocol also. So that
Yes.
only you can do yourselves rather than somebody else doing for you. So that's why familiarity with the CDSCO website, the updates in regulatory requirements and the medical device rules become very, very critical for all of us. Anybody else also has any questions that we can ask further?
So we have a question from Nitya. So maybe Nitya, you can unmute and you can ask your question.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so this is yes, sir. So this is Nidya from HDIC. Actually, I wanted to ask if these there are so many nutraceutical products, functional foods, and herbal formulations coming these days. So are they also considered drugs, and do they also need to undergo the same regulatory process?
So, so nutraceuticals is totally different from medical devices, madam. So
Yeah.
the regulations is totally different from medical devices. So there are separate guidelines available for the food supplements and nutraceuticals. So we will look the guidelines related to the food supplements.
Okay. So what about herbal formulations, sir? Like herbal medicines?
So the herbal medicine is another separate guidelines available in the OIS website. So
Okay. Okay.
it's totally different from medical device regulations.
Okay.
So first we need to check with the regulations related to Ayush preparations. So we
Okay.
have to
Okay.
follow all the Ayush guidelines, whatever specified in the Ayush guidelines.
Okay. Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Um,
We have a question
any,
from Vinay
yeah,
also, sir. So okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh, no, I think if anybody else wants to still ask a question, we are open. Mr. Kannan, can I ask something for the which may be applicable to all the listeners here?
Yes, sir.
Do the people or people such as yourself who actually conduct clinical trials
Mm,
at different clinical trial divisions across the country, whether
mm,
hospitals or such places,
mm.
do you actually come up with the trial protocol, or is it the primary responsibility of the PI? I'm asking this specifically for medical devices because with each type of device, the protocol for trial may vary. So,
It's
how does one
always better
standardize
to,
this?
sir, it's always better to come with the clinical trial protocol because according to our requirement, we can frame the protocol. So it's always ideal, sir. So only for the investigator. If you are the investigator, means we can develop. That is considered as a investigator-initiated trial. But it's as a medical devices sponsor, it's always better to come with the clinical trial protocol because you only know completely known about the your requirement. What is your objective? What's your outcome measurements? Everything well known by the sponsor only.
Okay. Um, Last call for questions if there are any, either on the message board or unmuting. I think
I have a question, Dr. Hardeep, to you.
yes,
Can I
please.
can I ask? Okay, are you representing the Sri Ramachandra Institute or are you representing HTIC?
No, I am representing the Sri Ramachandra Institute. I am
Okay,
the CEO of the incubation center at Ramachandra Institute.
okay, great, great. So kindly share your mail ID, so that I can correspond with you. I've been, wanting to talk to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just put up my email address on the chat board
Great.
also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I've just pasted. So, okay, because Mr. Vinay brought it up, we are an incubation center located in Chennai. We are one of the few incubation centers across the country that is associated with a hospital and a medical college. So that is why I am very privileged to be associated with this organization because of the ease with which an incubatee can conduct clinical trials here. So if any of you are working with medical devices and would like to have your device tested for clinical efficacy, please do approach us either directly or through HTIC as part of this webinar, and we would definitely like to help you out. So I think if there are no more questions, Sumitra, is it okay if we can close the call?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you, sir. So I would like to thank Mr. Kannan, sir, for doing this session and for sharing his knowledge and insights with our participants. And I also like to thank you, sir, for hosting the session and for organizing the session and finding in a speaker for us. Thank you so much, sir. So I also thank all the participants for joining the session. So, Mr. Kannan, sir, before we close the session, so we have a practice that we used to upload our sessions in our YouTube channel. Hope that is fine with you, sir.
Yeah, fine. It's fine.
Yes, sir. So thank you, sir. So once again, I thank Dr. Hardeep sir and Kannan sir for organizing and hosting the session. So I thank all the participants also. So that's it from my side. So have a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.